Gavin Newsom just made the biggest mistake of his political career. He thought he could hide tens of millions of dollars in misallocated budget funds. Big mistake. Karoline Leavitt stepped in. She didn't just bring questions. She brought a classified dossier that could obliterate Newsom's career right at the hearing. What happened next would leave the entire nation stunned. The congressional hearing room this morning was packed, with press rows filled to capacity, microphones labeled CNN, Fox, and AP, crowded on the long table up front. Above the witness stand, Gavin Newsom sat ready, his face cool but confident. He was there to defend his recent budget decisions against a wave of criticism. His voice rang steady, touting figures for infrastructure, schools, and crime prevention, trying to erase the image of an accused power abuser. For a moment, he believed he had the room under control. Then the door at the back swung open. All eyes turned to the figure stepping in. It was Karoline Leavitt, Trump's young spokesperson, but this time not just as a press secretary. In her hand was a thick dossier, its gold clasp gleaming. Each step she took silenced the room. No one spoke, only the tense click of her heels echoed. Security hesitated but didn't dare stop her. As reporters swung their cameras toward her, Newsom smirked, his eyes narrowing. "We didn't invite actors to this hearing," he quipped. But Karoline didn't react. She marched straight to the witness table, slammed the dossier down, making the row of microphones rattle. The sound of paper echoed through the room. Then she looked up, locking eyes with Newsom. "I'm not here to play a role today. I'm here to ask questions you can't dodge, and this is proof you've betrayed the people of California." The room held its breath. Newsom frowned, adjusted his tie, trying to stay composed, but his hand gripped the table's edge tightly. He shot back. "Who do you think you are, questioning a governor from here?" Karoline tilted her head, her voice firm. "I'm the voice of those whose tax dollars and trust you've stolen, and you'll answer for it today." The moment ignited the room. Reporters scrambled to record, lawmakers whispered, and Newsom, for the first time, showed unease. The confrontation had officially begun. The gavel banged, the committee chair signaling for order. The room quieted. Karoline was now at the witness table, her dossier open before her. She flipped a few pages quickly, then began in a calm but clear voice. On March 14th, Governor Gavin Newsom approved $27 million for an infrastructure project in Solano County. But a federal audit confirms no contracts were signed, no projects were started, and the money vanished within 2 weeks. This is a copy of the audit report. She held up a page, the red federal seal glinting under the lights. Reporters surged to capture it. Newsom slammed his hand on the table, his voice louder than usual. "That's a fabrication. No one will believe these meaningless papers." But the chair sternly interjected. "Governor, please let the witness finish." Karoline nodded, her eyes still on Newsom, and continued. A second sum, $13.5 million, was allocated for a school support program in Fresno. But internal emails show the money was funneled to a lobbying firm that donated to your re-election campaign. Here's a printout of the emails, with sender, recipient, timestamp, and clear content. She handed a stack of papers to the clerk. The large screen displayed the text, including a line from Newsom's own aide. "The boss wants this routed through Fresno, but it's actually going to our partners." The room erupted. Newsom leapt up, pointing at Karoline. "Blatant forgery. This is the work of far-right extremists." But his voice trembled, the microphone catching its uneven pitch. Karoline didn't let him dominate. She calmly pulled out a USB, her voice resolute. "And here's a recording of a conversation between the governor and his advisor, where he himself says, 'Just transfer it, legitimize the paperwork, we'll deal with it later.'" The audio played, a familiar male voice filling the room, causing a stir in the back rows. Some lawmakers covered their mouths. Newsom froze for a moment, then stammered, "Fake audio. Edited." But the chair banged the gavel, turning to the forensic expert seated behind. "Can you verify?" The expert stood. "Independent analysis confirms the voice matches Governor Gavin Newsom at 99.7%. The room exploded, with gasps. Karoline leaned back slightly, a faint smile crossing her face. She'd landed the first blow. Newsom gripped his hands tightly, his face paling, knuckles whitening as he clutched the stand's edge. He took a deep breath, glaring at Karoline, his voice low and deliberate. "Enough. This is a political witch hunt. This entire room, all of you, are enabling a puppet of Donald Trump. a naive stooge who knows nothing about governance, daring to judge me. He spun, pointing at the press row. Write it down, record it all, and tomorrow you'll see your fake news exposed. His voice echoed, sharp and defiant, but instead of silencing the room, it sparked a wave of reactions. Some lawmakers whispered, reporters raised eyebrows, and Karoline sat still, unflinching, waiting for him to finish. When he did, she tilted her head, a cold smile flickering. If you think this is just politics, then answer a simple question. Do you deny that the signature on the audit report is yours? All eyes locked on Newsom. He blinked, his mouth twitching, then blurted, I don't confirm any of those fabricated documents. Karoline seized the moment, her voice ringing, so you won't deny it. Because if you did, you'd face perjury charges before Congress. You know that better than anyone. Her words landed like a hammer on stone. Some committee members nodded. The chair scribbled a note, and Newsom clenched his jaw, turning to personal attacks. Who are you to question me here? A PR girl, a failed House candidate, with no achievements beyond playing mouthpiece for a 2020 loser dictator. He sneered, thinking he'd struck a fatal blow, but Karoline sat upright, hands clasped, her eyes blazing under the lights. Funny you mentioned failure, because today, before the nation, you're the one exposed as failing in transparency and integrity. I may not have won a congressional seat, but at least I didn't sell out the public for power. Murmurs rose. A few in the room clapped briefly, before being hushed. Newsom, furious, his face flushed, returned to his seat, pulled out a stack of papers, and held them up. You have files, so do I. Here's proof. Karoline Leavitt took funding from far-right groups, met with oil tycoons, was trained to smear me with baseless accusations. He waved the papers triumphantly, flipping pages for the cameras, but Karoline didn't flinch. When he set them down, she said calmly, I don't need to defend transparent fundraising. You, however, must answer for what you've tried to hide. One side has open records, the other has missing budget funds. The public can judge for themselves. Newsom gave a forced laugh, tapping the table, then shifted tactics, his voice rising. You're turning yourself into a tool of a coup, trying to destroy trust in our institutions for someone else's gain. Karoline leaned toward the microphone, eyes locked on him. No, you're wrong. I'm defending trust in our institutions by proving even a governor isn't above the law. If you won't answer today, the people will ask tomorrow. The chair looked at the dossier, then up, voice calm. Governor, please keep your responses focused on the specific allegations. Personal attacks don't change the facts on paper. Newsom froze, lips pursed, sweat beading on his forehead. He tried again. There's nothing specific, just fabricated stories. Karoline touched her dossier, pulling out another sheet, her voice resolute. Then explain why your schedule on April 22nd clearly shows you in Sacramento, and the email I presented earlier mentions a meeting that same day, same time, same place, with your signature attached. This isn't fabrication. It's undeniable alignment. Newsom stammered. That could be a coincidence. The room burst into bitter laughter, reporters' keyboards clacking like a drum beat. Karoline sat up straighter, her gaze icy. A governor managing millions of lives can't rely on coincidence to explain tens of millions of missing dollars. Today, you either clarify or stay silent, and let justice speak. Newsom stood frozen for a moment, then slammed his hand on the table, making the microphones shake. I won't play your game. I'm done answering your questions. The chair banged the gavel. Governor refusing to answer may be seen as obstructing the investigation. We advise you to reconsider. Meanwhile, Karoline sat calmly, her lips curving into an enigmatic smile, as if everything so far was just the opening act. The room knew Newsom's fierce counterattack had collapsed the moment he lost his composure, leaving an opening for his young adversary to deliver the next blows. The room was thick with tension. As the chair's gavel fell, Karoline stood smoothly, adjusting her microphone. Her hand rested on her dossier, thicker than the stack Newsom had tried to use in his counterattack. Her eyes swept the room, pausing on each expectant face. Then her voice rang clear. I want to present further evidence from the Federal Audit Agency, documents never before released to the public, delivered to my office last week. They show not just one but multiple budget funds drained in the same pattern, all bearing Governor Gavin Newsom's approval signature. She opened the dossier, pulled out a sealed yellow envelope, and handed it to the committee clerk. It was quickly passed to the chair, with copies distributed to lawmakers and Newsom. Cameras zoomed in on the pages as they were revealed. The red federal seal glaring at the top, Newsom's familiar blue signature at the bottom. Reporters held their breath. Newsom lunged for the microphone. Forged. There's no way the federal audit would leak documents to you. This is stolen evidence. Karoline didn't waver. She held up another page. This is a bank reconciliation report showing that on May 12th, $18 million was withdrawn from the Community Development Fund and transferred to a shell company in Delaware. The company's legal owner, per business records, is the governor's cousin. A wave of gasps swept the room. Some lawmakers leaned in, reading closely, pens scribbling furiously, cameras capturing Newsom's ashen face. He gave a forced laugh, his voice faltering. I'm not responsible for what my relatives do. Karoline pounced on the opening, eyes locked on him.
Voice commanding.
But you are responsible when your signature approves that withdrawal, along with your personal ID code, which only the governor's office can use. The chair frowned, turning to Newsom. Governor, do you deny this is your signature? Newsom swallowed hard, eyes darting, then said, I can't confirm without an on-site expert. Karoline didn't wait. She pulled out another document, a detailed expenditure spreadsheet, her voice unwavering. The audit clearly shows that in 3 months, over $59 million was diverted from public funds to private accounts. Of that, $41 million is tied directly to 3 shell companies, 2 of which funded your re-election campaign. This is evidence of disguised bribery. The gavel banged for order, but it couldn't stop the uproar from the back rows. Karoline pressed on, opening her laptop and connecting to the big screen. A video appeared, a closed-door meeting in the governor's office, Newsom seated beside a wealthy businessman. His voice clear, if you cover $5 million for the campaign, I'll ensure your contract is signed next month. The room exploded, some lawmakers gasping audibly, others covering their mouths in disbelief. Newsom, pale, slammed his hand on the table. Edited video. I'll sue anyone who spreads this. Karoline remained calm. This video was extracted from a former staffer's hard drive in your office. It's been verified with original metadata, fully intact. Governor, how long will you keep denying? Newsom opened his mouth, but no words came out, sweat rolling down his temple, his hand crushing the plastic cup until it cracked. Meanwhile, reporters grabbed their phones, tweeting, Newsom exposed across social media. Karoline concluded, her voice low but resonant. You thought power and political connections would shield you, but today, justice has reached your seat. You have no way out. The room fell silent, suffocating, and in that moment, no one doubted the gravity of the audit evidence. Karoline had unleashed, a shockwave shaking the once invincible governor's image. Newsom slumped into his chair, his face flushed with both anger and pressure from hundreds of lenses zooming in. He tapped the table nervously, then stood abruptly, adjusting his microphone. His voice came out hoarse but trying for strength. Enough. I don't need to hear more of these carefully staged lies. What she's presenting is cherry-picked, distorted to take me down. I've dedicated my career to California's people, and now some outsider, with not a day of real governance, dares point a spear at me. He paused, scanning the room for support, but found only stern faces, pens scribbling, and cold camera lights. Karoline sat quietly, waiting for him to finish, then stood firmly, her voice steady. If you're so confident in your innocence, answer my question directly. Is this your signature? She held up the budget approval, its red seal gleaming. The room held its breath, all eyes on Newsom. He inhaled, hands gripping the table, sweat dotting his forehead. I can't confirm without an official signature verification, he stammered. Karoline tilted her head, a mocking smile flickering. So you won't deny it, just evade. Because you know denying it would mean perjury. The public sees it clearly. You can't face your own signature. Her words cut through his fragile defense. Newsom roared, voice out of control. You're ridiculous. You and your allies fabricated this entire story to destroy me, to hand power to your side. This isn't justice. It's a political coup. He pointed at Karoline, eyes bloodshot. The room buzzed, some lawmakers frowning. Karoline didn't blink, stepping closer, hands on the table, voice low but sharp. You can shout, you can blame, but you can't erase the truth on paper, your voice on tape, or the video of your own words. You're here, before the nation, with no counter-evidence beyond insults. A few "that's right" murmurs came from the back. Newsom trembled, grabbed his dossier, flipped through it frantically, then held up a sheet. "Here, proof. She contacted an oil tycoon for her campaign funding, and she dares accuse me of corruption." He waved the paper, but the camera showed it blurry, lacking authentication. Karoline glanced at it and replied curtly, "I don't deny transparent fundraising, but fundraising isn't embezzlement, isn't funneling public funds to cronies. Governor, don't conflate the two." The public is smart enough to see the difference. Scattered applause broke out, quickly silenced by the gavel. Newsom spun, voice sharp. "You think a few claps will bring me down? You're risking your fledgling career just to smear me." Karoline stood tall, eyes piercing. "No, I'm risking it for justice. My career isn't as important as the truth the public deserves. Can you say the same?" Her question silenced the murmurs, the room deathly still. Newsom stammered, muttering incoherently, then fell silent, eyes searching for an escape. Karoline pulled another stack from her dossier, holding it high, and here, internal emails between the governor's office and a lobbying firm, clearly stating, "The boss wants the Fresno funds sent straight to our partners, ensuring their continued campaign support." The screen displayed the full conversation. Newsom's face drained of color, his hand covering half his face, muttering, "I could be hacked." Karoline sealed it, voice icy, "Always someone else, always fake, never a straight answer. The public is watching, and they won't forget that when faced with truth, you only dodge. That's not strength, it's cowardice." Her words echoed, a final blow to Newsom's crumbling credibility before everyone's eyes. The room's atmosphere was heavy, pressing down on every seat. As the chair's gavel fell, a strange silence enveloped the crowd, all aware the next moments would tip the balance of power. Karoline stood unwavering, her face showing no tension, her eyes blazing as if daring any rebuttal. Newsom slumped in his chair, hands clasping, then releasing, movements restless, like a man losing patience. The committee clerk handed Karoline a new set of documents per evidence protocol, and as she took them, murmurs rippled through the room like waves. Karoline opened the file, flipping pages deliberately, her eyes scanning each line, then looked up, voice steady. "The evidence I've presented is not the full story. This is a detailed report showing the governor's office approved a covert payment system using federal funds to finance political campaigns and private contracts. In 3 months, $59 million vanished through this pattern." And here she held up a page, pausing for the cameras to zoom in. Is Gavin Newsom's final approval signature, with his personal ID code, which only the head of the office can use. The room erupted in loud gasps. The chair banged the gavel, but it couldn't stop the media frenzy, cameras clicking like rain. Newsom leapt up, grabbing the microphone, voice shrill. "I never signed this. It's forged. I demand an immediate authenticity check." But Karoline didn't let him overtake her, her voice resolute. "If it's fake, do you dare swear here that this isn't your signature? Remember, a false oath before Congress is perjury, which could cost you your office or land you in court." Her question pierced like a blade, freezing Newsom's face, his eyes lost for a moment. He stammered, I'll wait for verification results. I won't play your game." Bitter laughter broke from the back, the chair banging harder. "Order. Governor, you have a duty to answer directly. Evasion is not an answer." Newsom gripped the microphone, voice faltering. "I won't be trapped." Karoline stared, unyielding, pulling another USB from her jacket, her voice cold. "If you think it's all just papers, listen to this." She signaled the technician, and the screen lit up with a video. A private dinner at a tycoon's Napa Valley mansion. Newsom at a long table, red wine in hand, saying clearly, "We'll legitimize every expense. I'll sign it all, as long as the money flows back to my campaign." The room exploded, shocked cries echoing, some lawmakers gaping, reporters surging forward, cameras capturing Newsom's stunned expression. He reeled, hands shaking, shouting hoarsely, "Edited, a tech scam. I'll sue everyone spreading this." But the committee's digital forensics expert stood. The video was analyzed with 3 independent tools, showing no signs of tampering. Metadata confirms it was recorded by internal surveillance at the event you attended. Murmurs rose again, the chair turning to Newsom. "Governor, please explain." Newsom breathed heavily, sweat streaming down his temple, trying to steady his voice. I I don't recall. Someone might have secretly recorded and staged it. Karoline seized the moment, stepping closer, voice icy. You may not recall, but the video does. You may not admit, but the banks and audits do. And today, the American people will remember that when asked directly, you only dodge and shout. Scattered applause broke out, quickly hushed by the gavel, but the momentum had shifted. A lawmaker near the chair whispered, "Enough. He's lost control." Newsom slammed the table, microphones shaking. "I won't let a naive girl destroy my reputation. You'll all pay for turning this into a circus." But Karoline needed no more words. She turned to the live broadcast camera, voice calm. "This isn't a circus. It's the truth, and you can't run from it." Her statement landed, heavy as lead, silencing the room. In that moment, everyone knew the confrontation had reached a courtroom climax, where Gavin Newsom had no walls left to hide behind, and Karoline Leavitt stood firm, a beacon piercing the darkness of power. The already tense room erupted, filled with murmurs, camera clicks, and the creak of chairs as people leaned forward, not wanting to miss a single moment. In that suffocating atmosphere, Gavin Newsom could no longer maintain his facade of calm. He shot to his feet, slamming both hands on the table, making the microphones clatter. His voice broke with fury. "I won't tolerate another second of this farce. She has no standing, no authority, and this entire committee is turning me into a political scapegoat." He turned to the row of lawmakers, eyes bloodshot, veins bulging on his forehead. "You'll regret letting her stand here." His roar startled many, but Karoline remained unmoved, sitting upright, her eyes locked on him as if watching a man dig his own grave. A faint smile flickered on her lips, and then her voice rang out, calm to the point of piercing in the chaotic moment. "The more you lose control, the clearer the truth becomes to the people. An innocent person never needs to scream to defend themselves." Her words cut like a knife, and Newsom nearly lost it, pointing directly at her, voice cracking with rage. "You're political trash, just a far-right puppet, a child playing an adult's game." His shout made the microphone screech, prompting the chair to bang the gavel. "Governor, order. If you continue, we'll be forced to halt this hearing to address your obstruction." But Newsom, as if deaf to the warning, plunged into a frenzy, stepping from his chair toward the witness table where Karoline sat. Security rushed to intervene, keeping a safe distance. Cameras panned frantically, capturing a powerful governor flailing and shouting in a national hearing room. An image broadcast live to millions, showing Gavin Newsom losing it in the literal sense. Karoline didn't look away, tilting her head slightly, hands clasped on the table, her voice cold. "You're proving to the nation what I said, that you're weak, and that weakness is masquerading as power." Her words were like a spark, igniting Newsom to yell again, "Shut up. I've sacrificed everything for this state, for these people, and you're just here to destroy." But his shout was no longer strength. It was the cry of a desperate man. The room surged, some lawmakers shaking their heads in disappointment, others covering their faces, unable to believe the scene. Reporters scribbled furiously, "Newsom meltdown," words sure to headline tomorrow's news. The chair stood, banging the gavel repeatedly. "Governor, sit down immediately. Otherwise, the committee will consider you in serious violation of hearing protocol." Finally, Newsom froze, chest heaving, sweat beading, letting security guide him back to his seat. But the damage was done. The image of a proud leader had crumbled in minutes of eruption. Karoline sat upright, eyes never leaving him, her voice clear. "Mr. Chairman, I believe the most compelling evidence is the reaction we just witnessed. An innocent person doesn't lose composure like that. Today, the people have seen the governor's true face." The room fell silent, then buzzed again. But this time it wasn't doubt. It was a quiet wave of agreement. Newsom hung his head, hands trembling, struggling to steady his breathing. But the glare of dozens of cameras captured every bead of sweat, every dry swallow, every moment of his collapse. Karoline leaned forward slightly, delivering a final line that would echo beyond the walls of Congress. "Justice doesn't fear shouting, and today, justice is winning." Her declaration made the room explode, and outside, millions glued to their screens knew this moment would be remembered for years as the one where Gavin Newsom lost everything by failing to keep his composure. The room was still buzzing from Newsom's outburst when Karoline suddenly stood, raising her hand to continue, her voice calm but firm. "Mr. Chairman, before the governor makes more excuses, I'd like to call a witness the committee summoned at my request." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to the door, where two security officers escorted a middle-aged man, slightly stooped, with graying hair. He clutched an old briefcase tightly. As he sat at the secondary witness table, reporters whispered, recognizing Richard Halpern, Newsom's former senior financial aide, who abruptly resigned 8 months ago without clear reason. The chair confirmed his identity and nodded. "Mr. Halpern, what do you wish to state before the committee?" Halpern glanced around, his gaze settling on Newsom, who had been raging just minutes before, then took a deep breath. "Yes, I worked in the governor's office for nearly 10 years, and I left because I could no longer sign documents my conscience rejected. I was forced to legitimize multiple payments to shell companies. I was often told to sign on behalf of the governor, and every time I asked why, I got the same answer: don't ask, just do it. Direct orders from him." The room shook with murmurs that wouldn't stop. Newsom leapt up, slamming the table. Blatant lies. He was fired for incompetence, not resigned. This is a bitter man bought by Karoline. But the chair banged the gavel. "Governor, order. This is a hearing, not a shouting match." Halpern remained calm, opening his briefcase and pulling out tattered but clear copies of contracts and bank statements, sliding them to the clerk. "These prove I signed on behalf of the governor in at least 6 transactions, totaling over $40 million. I kept these copies because I knew the day would come when I'd need to tell the truth." Karoline seized the moment, her voice ringing. "Can you confirm before the committee that these signatures were not yours, but signed at Gavin Newsom's direct instruction?" Halpern nodded firmly. "I swear on my honor, I signed under his explicit direction, and once I heard him tell an advisor, as long as the paperwork passes initial audits, no one will dig deeper." A wave of outrage surged through the room, lawmakers exchanging stunned looks, while Newsom's face paled, hands trembling. He tried to rally, voice faltering. I never said that. This is a scripted setup." But Karoline cut in, eyes locked on him. "A setup? Then why do Halpern's documents match the federal audit data sent to me? Do you dare deny it?" Newsom stammered, glancing at his lawyer, but getting no response. The chair sternly, "Governor, these documents will be cross-checked, but a former financial aide's direct testimony makes this far more serious." Reporters sent breaking news alerts, headlines flashing on laptops. Bombshell at hearing. Former aide accuses Newsom of forcing fraudulent signatures. Karoline didn't miss a beat, stepping closer to the witness table, hand on her dossier, voice clear. "What are the American people seeing today? A governor shouting, blaming, denying, while witnesses, documents, recordings, videos all point one way. This isn't rumor, it's raw truth." Halpern nodded, voice hoarse with emotion. "I was loyal, I believed in him. But after sleepless nights, I knew truth mattered more than blind loyalty." His testimony was another dagger into Newsom's already crumbling image. He sank into his chair, hands cradling his head, while Karoline turned to the chair, asserting, "The surprise witness has confirmed it, and the public won't forget. This is the second undeniable piece of evidence, proving the governor abused his power. From this moment, he can't run anymore." The room went quiet for seconds, then erupted in noise, while Newsom sank into a hopeless silence. A wall of power toppled by the man who once stood behind him, right before the nation's eyes. The room was still reeling from Halpern's testimony when the chair leaned toward the microphone, voice low but firm. "The committee will pause the lawmakers' questioning. We want to hear directly from both sides, Karoline Leavitt and Governor Gavin Newsom, in open debate here. The people deserve to see the truth unfiltered." The announcement sent the room into a frenzy, reporters scrambling to record, as the two faced each other, no documents or witnesses between them. Newsom adjusted his tie, eyes blazing, but trying to reclaim his arrogance. "You want to turn this hearing into a boxing ring? Fine. But remember, I've led America's largest state, while you're just a failed House candidate. I don't see this as a fair fight." Karoline tilted her head, her voice soft but resonant. "You're right. It's not fair. You carry the weight of evidence against you."
"Well, I carry only the truth."
"And truth never equals lie." Scattered applause broke out, quickly silenced by the gavel, but the momentum had shifted to Karoline. Newsom took a deep breath, launching an attack. "If you claim to represent truth, explain why you repeatedly met and took money from far-right groups. You're nothing but a trained tool to take me down. Californians don't need an outsider interfering." Karoline didn't flinch, stepping toward him, eyes blazing. I don't deny any fundraising because it's open and transparent. I don't hide. I don't funnel public funds to friends. Can you say the same? Can you swear to the nation you never took a dime of public money for personal gain? Her question struck like a spear, piercing the room's silence. Newsom opened his mouth, then froze, the room watching every second of his silence, which became its own answer. He tried to shout, "That's a trap. I won't swear on your terms." But Karoline cut in, "Not my terms. The law's terms. You're dodging because you know swearing would mean perjury. The people don't need experts to see you're scared." The room buzzed, some lawmakers nodding, reporters typing. Newsom avoids public oath. Newsom pivoted, voice frantic. "You dare bring edited videos, staged recordings here, so you could fabricate any story. I'm the victim of a sophisticated smear campaign, and you're just its mouthpiece." Karoline smiled, pulling a stack of verified internal emails from her dossier. "If it's fabricated, explain why emails from your own office to a lobbying firm state direct orders from the governor. If not you, who gave those orders? A ghost?" The screen behind her displayed the email, each word cold as undeniable proof. Newsom trembled, grasping. The office could have been hacked. An aide could have messed up. Karoline pressed further. "You blame others again, but the bank transactions match. Your signature matches. The video matches. Everything points to one person. You. You can insult me, slander the witness, blame aides, but you can't erase your own trail." Her voice slowed, each word like a nail. "Today, before the nation, you have two choices. Answer honestly and take responsibility, or keep shouting like a man out of control and let the public convict you. Choose, Gavin." The room fell silent, only the sound of beating hearts echoing in listeners' ears. Newsom opened his mouth, letting out a heavy breath, eyes wild, then slammed the table. "I'm done answering. I refuse to play this farce." The chair banged the gavel repeatedly. "Governor, your refusal will be noted, and the public will judge. Miss Leavitt, please conclude your confrontation." Karoline looked straight at Newsom, a cold smile flickering. "I finished when you chose silence, and your silence is your loudest confession." The gavel struck decisively, but in everyone's minds, the tense duel had already been decided. Karoline held the upper hand, while Newsom had lost through his own words and actions. The room's heavy atmosphere lingered after the direct confrontation. As the chair's gavel closed it, Gavin Newsom, instead of staying silent to salvage some dignity, leaned toward the microphone, face taut, voice trembling but defiant, as if trying to seize control. He spoke, nearly shouting, "You don't understand. Every decision I made was to protect California. If I didn't rearrange the budget, my political allies couldn't sustain projects, couldn't keep stability. I didn't do it for myself, but for the whole system." His words echoed, then stopped abruptly, like a stone dropping into a still lake. The room froze for a second, then erupted in murmurs, reporters scrambling, some blurting, "Oh my God." The chair glared, banging the gavel. "Governor, what did you just admit? Are you saying you arranged the budgets for allies?" Newsom paled, realizing his slip, stammering, "No, I meant budget allocation needs flexibility. Not." But Karoline stood, her voice icy, crushing his defense. "You just admitted before Congress that you used your authority to redirect funds for political allies. Do you know what that means? It's proof of abusing your office and open corruption." Her words were like thunder tearing through the ceiling, dozens of cameras zooming in on Newsom's panicked face, sweat streaming, mouth twitching wordlessly. A committee member whispered, caught by the mic, "That's a direct admission. No more needed." Reporters typed frantically, some sending breaking alerts. "Breaking: Newsom admits reallocating funds for allies." Karoline didn't miss the golden moment, stepping forward, eyes burning. "You can deny signatures, videos, blame aides, or claim hacks, but you can't deny your own mouth. The nation just heard you admit diverting funds to allies. That's a truth you can't retract." The room buzzed, many lawmakers nodding, the chair scribbling, "Direct admission, forward to criminal investigation." Newsom tried to stand firm, voice faltering. You don't understand. I was pressured. I had no choice. If I didn't, we'd lose political support. The state would be chaos." But the more he spoke, the deeper he sank, like a man digging his own pit. Karoline crossed her arms, voice cutting. "You just admitted more that you saw public funds as a political bargaining chip, a tool to hold power. That's not a mistake. That's betraying the people's trust. The microphone caught the silence after her words, a heavy silence signaling the end of Newsom's image. Reporters raised hands, one shouting, "Governor, will you resign?" Another cut in, "Are you afraid of criminal charges?" Newsom shook his head wildly, voice breaking. No, I won't resign. It's just my way of speaking. You misunderstood, but no one believed him. The chair cut through, voice firm. Your excuses will be reviewed, but I remind you your statement is on record. We'll forward everything to an independent investigation. Karoline sat, eyes locked on Newsom, lips curling into a cold smile. You shot yourself in the foot, Gavin. I only asked questions, and you confessed. The room erupted in chatter, while Newsom hung his head, face ashen, realizing his career had crumbled with one slip. And in that moment, everyone knew the battle was no longer evidence versus denial, but Newsom's admission against himself. The room was still buzzing from Newsom's slip when Karoline Leavitt stood again, her movement so decisive that all eyes snapped to her. Her hand rested on a sealed dossier, its dark cover marked "Confidential" in bold on the top left, the camera lights reflecting off the text. Her voice was steady, calm but sharp. "Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, if the governor still claims his admission was a misstatement, I present the final evidence. This is a classified dossier, delivered to me through a federal whistleblower protection channel. It details how Governor Gavin Newsom's re-election campaign illegally used public funds. This isn't just words, it's a detailed plan." The room exploded with chatter, the chair signaling security to check the dossier before allowing its display. When the screen lit up, pages appeared, internal budgets listing campaign funds, sourced from health budget, media costs, diverted from education funds, TV campaign, sourced from infrastructure funds. Each line was clear, even to lay people, revealing the severity. A front-row lawmaker whispered, unable to hold back, "My God, this is the smoking gun." Newsom, ashen, leapt up, shouting into the mic, "No, it's fake. No such document exists. She made it all up." But the committee's legal expert, already present, stood, holding an analysis. "This document carries original metadata from the California governor's office servers. Verification confirms no tampering. It's authentic." The statement was a dagger through Newsom's fragile defense. Karoline stepped forward, voice slow, each word deliberate. "In this dossier, there's a note in Gavin Newsom's own handwriting. Ensure funds flow back to the campaign. Prioritize securing Sacramento's political alliance. Your handwriting has been verified. Do you dare deny it's yours?" The room held its breath. Cameras zooming in on Newsom, catching every twitch. He stammered, sweat pouring, all-eyed. "I don't recall writing that. Someone could have," but his voice was weak, unbelievable. The chair banged the gavel, voice stern. "Governor, this is undeniable evidence. The people need a clear answer." But instead of answering, Newsom flailed, shouting, "This is a conspiracy, a staged political coup. I'm not a criminal." His cry echoed, but to onlookers, he was no longer a strong leader, just a frantic, desperate man clinging to his last shred of power. Karoline didn't need to shout, tilting her head, eyes icy. "You call it a conspiracy, but every document bears your signature. You call it staged, but videos, recordings, emails, now a classified dossier from your own office, all align. A conspiracy can't create such perfect alignment. This isn't a conspiracy, it's the truth. And that truth has ended your political career." A wave of outrage surged through the room, some lawmakers slamming pens on tables, others sighing in disappointment, reporters' keyboards clattering like rain. The chair declared solemnly, "This classified dossier will be sealed and sent directly to the Department of Justice for a criminal investigation. With this evidence, we have no doubt Governor Gavin Newsom abused his authority and embezzled public funds for political purposes." Newsom seemed drained of strength, collapsing into his chair, hands cradling his head, eyes staring blankly. The cameras kept clicking, capturing a man who once stood atop power, now helpless in the storm's eye. Karoline sat upright, eyes fixed on her opponent. Then turned to the microphone, voice resounding. "The American people today witnessed the truth. No one, not even a powerful governor, is above the law. And no one, not even Gavin Newsom, can hide their betrayal forever. The chair's gavel struck one final time. The hearing is temporarily adjourned. Authorities will take over. But for the millions watching live, they knew they had just witnessed a fatal blow. The moment a classified dossier buried Gavin Newsom's career before the nation's eyes and etched Karoline Leavitt's name as the one who dared stand up and bring the truth to light. As the chair's final gavel echoed, closing the hearing, the already noisy room erupted into a frenzy. Reporters rushed out to file breaking news. Lawmakers whispered with heavy glances, while Gavin Newsom remained motionless, hands cradling his head, back hunched as if bearing a massive boulder. His face was ashen, his eyes vacant, as if unaware of his surroundings. When he stood, stumbling away from the witness table, dozens of lenses zeroed in, capturing a once powerful governor, reduced to a shell-shocked figure. The door opened, revealing a sea of reporters waiting outside, flashes bursting like a blinding storm, questions pelting him. Governor, will you resign? Are you afraid of criminal charges? How do you explain the classified dossier just revealed? Newsom raised a hand to shield his face, pushing through the crowd, muttering only, "No, I have nothing to say." His voice was hoarse, disjointed. The scene was broadcast live, with millions of Americans watching the public collapse of a once proud politician. News channels juxtaposed stark images. On one side, Newsom shouting, losing control, scrambling past cameras. On the other, Karoline Leavitt sitting upright, eyes cold, voice resolute, declaring, "Justice doesn't fear shouting." The contrast was a heavy verdict on Newsom's reputation. Meanwhile, Karoline walked out the main door with steady steps. Reporters swarmed her, but instead of dodging, she paused, raised a hand for silence, and said succinctly, "Today isn't about me, it's about the truth. The people have seen, and justice will do the rest." That single sentence sent the hallway into a buzz, with news outlets flashing headlines. Karoline Leavitt, the voice of justice. Outside the building, crowds of protesters, both for and against Newsom, had gathered since morning, now erupting into chaos. Anti-Newsom groups raised signs reading "Resign now," while former supporters stood frozen, no longer daring to hold up their banners. Chants of "Shame, shame," echoed across the plaza. The image of Newsom being escorted away by security, amid jeers, became an instant symbol of public downfall, a moment akin to notorious politicians in history slinking away from office in disgrace. That afternoon, major news outlets ran urgent reports. Classified dossier exposes corruption. Newsom's political future effectively over. Political analysts no longer debated if but when he would face prosecution. Rapid polls showed public trust in Newsom plummeting, with less than 15% of voters saying they still supported him. Meanwhile, Karoline returned to her temporary hotel in Washington, but declined lengthy interviews, offering only a message, "I did what any citizen should, bring the truth to light. This isn't my victory, it's the American people's." Her words were replayed endlessly on evening broadcasts, and across social media, millions shared the clip with the hashtag #JusticePrevails. Newsom vanished behind the door of a black SUV, making no further appearances that day. His office issued a brief statement. Governor Newsom denies all allegations and will continue his duties. But to the public, the statement was as hollow as a lifeless sheet of paper, unable to salvage the image of a man who had collapsed publicly before the nation's cameras. That night, in bars, living rooms, and online chat groups, people discussed the historic hearing nonstop. Some compared Newsom to politicians who lost everything over a slip of the tongue or a leaked document. But as many emphasized, the difference here was that everything happened in the open, on live TV, with nothing left to hide. And because of that, Newsom's career buckled completely in the public's eyes. Karoline needed no more words. Her image, steady amid the storm, facing a raging governor, and delivering the classified dossier like a final sword stroke, became iconic. Newsom, once a politician with presidential ambitions, was now remembered only as the one who fell in a public collapse, undone not just by his opponent, but by his own mistakes and sins. The morning after, as the hearing's echoes lingered, America exploded with new developments. The special committee released a preliminary report recommending that the entire case be forwarded to the Department of Justice for prosecuting Gavin Newsom on multiple serious charges. The decision rang like a death knell for a once brilliant political career, and across media, the phrase "severe indictment" dominated headlines. The over 200-page report detailed every piece of evidence Karoline Leavitt presented, from missing budget audits, internal emails, directing fund transfers, voice recordings, the Napa Valley video, to the classified dossier exposing the plan to siphon public funds for re-election. All wove a logical, undeniable chain, painting a clear picture of systemic power abuse and corruption. At an urgent press conference, the committee chair read a summary sternly. The committee concludes, there is sufficient evidence to confirm Governor Gavin Newsom violated multiple federal and state laws, including abuse of office, embezzlement, disguised bribery, and obstruction of investigation. This dossier will be sent to the Department of Justice today. Additionally, the committee recommends temporarily suspending some of the governor's executive powers until the criminal investigation concludes. The resolute words sent the press room into a frenzy, reporters raising microphones, and breaking news flashed across major networks. Newsom facing federal indictment. In Sacramento, the governor's office rushed out a statement. Governor Gavin Newsom maintains his innocence and will fight to prove it. He views this decision as a political witch hunt aimed at destabilizing California. But the statement was swept away in the storm of public opinion, as people had seen and heard the hearing firsthand. The witch hunt rhetoric only made Newsom appear weaker and more desperate. Karoline Leavitt held no grandiose press conference. She appeared briefly outside her hotel, answering one question. Today's decision isn't my victory. It's the victory of the law. No one is above justice. Her words were quoted widely, paired with images of her resolute in a navy suit, eyes steadfast. The contrast between her calm and Newsom's frantic rage amplified the message. The political tide had turned. That afternoon, as the Department of Justice confirmed receiving the dossier and launching a criminal probe, analysts predicted Newsom's career was over. And this wasn't just a budget scandal, but potentially one of California's largest corruption cases. Longtime allies began distancing themselves. Two senators who once stood by him publicly supported a full investigation. Several major donors froze funding for projects tied to the governor's office. The scene in Sacramento that evening resembled a dark political drama. Hundreds of protesters gathered outside the governor's mansion, chanting, "Resign, resign," many holding signs scrawled with, "Not my governor." Drums and shouts filled the air. Inside, according to leaks, Newsom slammed the table, yelling at advisors, "You let this slip through my hands." His advisors stayed silent, knowing excuses were futile. The severe decision reverberated across America, dominating talk shows, podcasts, and evening news. Many called it California's Watergate. But unlike that scandal, the evidence was too direct. The collapse unfolding live. No secret investigation was needed. Everything was laid bare. While public trust took a heavy blow, Karoline Leavitt shone as a beacon, a young woman who stood fearless, uncompromising. At 9 p.m., the nation's top broadcast opened with Karoline leaving Congress, surrounded by reporters, her face calm, lips faintly smiling. The anchor closed. Today will go down in history as the day justice spoke, and Gavin Newsom faced the heaviest verdict of his career. Outside, millions of Americans nodded, feeling that Newsom's political throne had crumbled, not by an election, but by undeniable evidence and the law's stern judgment. Less than 24 hours after the committee's decision, American politics shook as if hit by an earthquake, its aftershocks reaching every corner of the system. In Sacramento, the state capitol was steeped in a heavy atmosphere. Democratic lawmakers split deeply. One faction staunchly defended Newsom as the last bulwark against the right, while another openly called for his resignation to save the party's dignity. Closed-door meetings multiplied, with moderate legislators admitting they couldn't bear the scandal's weight, the evidence too clear. A veteran lawmaker said behind closed doors, "We can't let the party sink with one man. If he won't step down, we'll have to push." Nationally, other Democratic-led states were rattled. Some governors quickly distanced themselves from Newsom's proposed programs, eager to prove this was a personal scandal, not a party-wide disease. But the more they dodged, the deeper media dug. Evening news repeatedly asked, "Is this a sign of a rotten system?" Newsom's frantic shouting in the hearing, replayed dozens of times, becoming a symbol of exposed control and corruption. Major donors who poured millions into Newsom's campaigns and projects withdrew. By morning, two top lobbying funds froze all spending. One donor said bluntly on CNN, "I don't invest in a sinking ship." This triggered a chain reaction. Politicians tied to Newsom, from local to federal levels, scrambled to cut ties, delete shared photos, revise statements, some even publicly condemning him to stay safe. Within the Republican Party, This was a gift from the heavens. GOP leaders seized the moment, appearing on TV to denounce the Democrats' dirty power culture, while praising Karoline Leavitt as a symbol of courage. A Republican senator said in a session, "When a young woman dares expose truths the system hides, that's when public trust is reborn." Karoline became a shining figure for conservative voters, and even some independents, tired of political scandals. The fallout reached the upcoming presidential election. Newsom, once a top contender, was entirely out of the race. Democratic strategists held emergency meetings to restructure the national campaign without his name. Other candidates were pushed forward, but the sudden power vacuum caused chaos within the party. Pro-Democrat media struggled to shield him, as the evidence aired live left no room for excuses. Meanwhile, Karoline received invitations to speak at major political conferences and national talk shows. She became a symbol of truth and transparency, resonating with both young and old. Some analysts called her a new star in politics, comparing her rise to rare breakthroughs when a background figure leaps into the spotlight through bold action. Pressure on Newsom grew daily. The state prosecutor's office launched a parallel investigation alongside the Department of Justice. Protests demanding his resignation spread across California, from Los Angeles to San Francisco. "Resign now" signs blanketed streets. A Snap poll showed over 70% of California voters believed he should leave immediately. Some longtime allies quietly urged, "Resign before you're ousted." The impact went global. Foreign media dubbed this California's Watergate, drawing parallels to the scandal that toppled a president. America's adversaries used it to criticize U.S. democracy, while allies praised the system's strength in bringing down even the most powerful. As night fell on Sacramento after the chaotic day, camera flashes still blazed outside the governor's mansion, crowds refusing to leave, waiting for a resignation announcement. Newsom stayed inside with a few loyal advisors, but everyone knew time was running out. American politics had shifted in mere days, with consequences that would linger for years, a scar reminding that power can't forever hide truth, and anyone, no matter how high, can fall when justice speaks. The fallout from Gavin Newsom's collapse didn't stay confined to one state. It rippled nationwide and echoed globally. International news from Europe, Asia, to South America gave front-page coverage to the story of a powerful governor toppled publicly by undeniable evidence. For Americans, this wasn't just a politician's end, but a stark reminder of transparency and justice's value. Heated debates unfolded at dinner tables, in political classrooms, in small-town cafes. Everyone with an opinion, but most agreed. This moment was iconic, a turning point in trust that democracy could self-cleanse. Karoline Leavitt, once underestimated, became the central figure. Her face-off with a veteran governor, delivering evidence after evidence, staying calm amid his outbursts, made her the face of a new generation. On social media, millions of youths shared her moment, saying, "Justice doesn't fear shouting," as a new slogan. Analysts called her proof that in politics, neither age nor status, but truth and courage win public trust. For Newsom, the aftermath was starkly different. From a White House hopeful, he became a textbook case of arrogance, leading to ruin. Universities began using the case in lectures as a study on public governance and political accountability. A Harvard professor commented, "The most memorable part isn't the classified dossiers or audits, but the moment he lost control shouting in the hearing." That image lays bare the truth. Power can't hide inner weakness. The biggest lesson for the public was transparency's role. Americans saw that no matter how great a governor's power or how complex their political network, clear evidence, signatures, emails, videos, admissions could topple an empire. This bolstered faith that the law, if enforced fairly, could protect the public from corruption. An activist said on TV, "People must remember we're not powerless. We have a voice, and when someone like Karoline stands up, we must support them to expose truth." Within politics, the impact ran deeper. Both parties, Republican and Democrat, had to reassess how they choose leaders, monitor and discipline the powerful. That fall's political conferences were filled with speeches around accountability. Young candidates took Karoline as a model, stressing that the new generation wouldn't compromise on corruption. This sparked a wave of clean politics campaigns, forcing veterans to adapt or be left behind. For the public, the lesson was personal. No one, even an ordinary citizen, should think their voice is meaningless. If a young person like Karoline, could topple a governor with truth. Every citizen could help protect justice by not staying silent against wrong. Stories retold in high school classrooms, where teachers showed clips of Karoline facing Newsom, inspired students that democracy isn't just a textbook concept, but a living force that can protect them. Time would sweep away the noise. Headlines replaced by new stories, but the echoes remained. People would remember Newsom as a leader who fell publicly to corruption and hubris. They'd remember Karoline Leavitt as the one who challenged the system, bringing justice to light. Most importantly, Americans would remember they are the final arbiters, as no one can stand above the law if the public stays vigilant and speaks out. The final lesson was simple but profound. Power may be built on image, connections, or money, but one crack of truth can collapse that castle in an instant. In American democracy, where everything is laid bare, truth always finds a way to speak, sometimes through a young face, sometimes through a slip of the tongue, but never buried forever. Thank you for following the story of Gavin Newsom's unprecedented collapse and Karoline Leavitt's moment of bringing justice to light. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to join us in future videos, where truth is always revealed in the spotlight.